And I think we're recording. So for all of my friends that are catching us later, we are going to read Stuck in the Stone Age on the computer, and I'll share it with you guys. So we're just going to read one chapter today as a test and see how it goes, but then maybe we can get back to our 3 chapters. So chapter 27. It was a very impressive crane, especially considering that no one involved in making it had ever built one before, and the only tools they had were trees, rocks, vines, and saber-toothed tiger teeth. From a platform of logs built on the shore of the lake, the crane rose 10 feet in the air, then jutted 20 feet out over the water. Its tiger-tooth pincers dangled from the ends of 2 long vines threaded across the crane's arm like a double fishing line on a pole. Marissa stood atop a high cliff above the crane, calling out directions to Tom and the cavemen as they maneuvered it into position. Farther, farther. Okay, stop. Now left a little. Too far. Back to the right. Stop. That's perfect. The tiger-tooth pincers dangled directly over the submerged fetcher. Okay, open the pincers. On Marissa's command, Tom unspooled the vine that controlled the pincers. The teeth slowly separated. Now, let out the vine. Tom turned his attention to the second line, giving it some play. The pincers sank into the water. Tom slowly let out more line until, I think I felt it, Tom yelled to Marissa. Can you see it? Yes, you're a little too deep. Pull back on the line a little. Perfect. Close the pincers. Tom pulled back on the pincer line. You got it. Pull it up. Tom began to reel in the second line. Ever so slowly, the fetcher emerged from the water, held between the pincers at the end of the vine. We got it, yelled Tom. Start swinging it over, yelled Marissa. Tom called back to Ed and Jim, who were manning the crane's arm. Turn it slow. They began to turn the arm, swinging the fetcher towards dry land. We're doing it, yelled Tom. It's coming over. We're going to. The fetcher slipped loose from the pincers and fell out into the water. Oh, rats, said Tom. Don't get discouraged, yelled Marissa. Let's just do it again. They did it again, and again, and then again 4 more times. But finally, we got it, we got it, we got it, yelled Tom as the fetcher finally reached dry land. I'll be right down, yelled Marissa. Doug and the other cavemen started towards the strangely glowing fetcher. Its control panel was slick with water, and a thin film of radioactive green goo had seeped from one of its seams. No touch, yelled Tom. No touch, stay away. The cavemen all looked at Doug. He rolled his eyes and shrugged. Smurg, he said. They all nodded, understanding what he meant was, don't ask me, gentlemen. I have no idea what that thing is or why we can't touch it. To be completely honest with you, I have no idea how the world works anymore. A few minutes later, Marissa arrived, out of breath from running down the hill next to the cliff. By then, Tom had selected the perfect 3-foot stick for pressing the big red return button on the fetcher. Marissa pointed to the fetcher and addressed the cavemen. No touch, stay away, danger. Doody-doo-doo, no touch, the cavemen chanted as they raised their arms in the air and lowered them at Marissa in a gesture of worship. I really hope this fetcher works, Marissa told Tom. Being worshipped isn't as much fun as I thought it would be. It's actually kind of creepy. Creepy, doo-doo-doo-doo, the cavemen chanted, raising and lowering their arms again. Tom raised the stick. Ready? Go for it. He reached out the stick and pressed the fetcher's big red button. 12,000 years later, the time machine stood on the Cease Auditorium stage, hidden under a large black velvet sheet that was much fancier than the original cotton one that Dr. Vasquez had used for the first show and tell. She rented the velvet sheet from a local magician who charged her $30. It seemed like a lot of money for just 2 hours of a giant black velvet sheet's time, but Dr. Vasquez decided it was worth the extra expense. It looked much more impressive than the plain cotton one. Plus, she was about to become fantastically wealthy, so she could afford to splurge. She stood backstage with Dr. Palindrome, peeking out at the assembled throng of reporters, as the Cease director reviewed the index cards on which he'd written his introductory speech. Should we get started? Dr. Vasquez asked. This was a very big day for her, and on the outside she looked composed and confident as ever. On the inside, though, she was so nervous that she had to keep reminding herself not to bite her stylishly green fingernails. Ready when you are, said Dr. Palindrome. Just then they heard a strange whoosh sound from the stage, followed by a collective gasp from the audience. Dr. Vasquez poked her head out to look at the stage and uttered her own gasp of shock. The black velvet sheet lay in a heap on the floor. The time machine had disappeared. 12,000 years earlier, the time machine reappeared on top of Doug's foot. Ow! He yelled, which was the only word in the caveman language that had the exact same meaning as it did in English. The other cavemen gasped, fell to their knees, and began to bow to the giant metal box that had mysteriously appeared in front of them. Doody-doo-doo, they chanted. Doug did not chant. He also didn't fall to his knees because there was a giant time machine on his foot. Instead, he just kept yelling, Ow! Sorry, Doug, we'll get that off your foot in just a skosh. Tom patted Doug on the shoulder as he ran to the time machine. Doug did not seem to appreciate Tom's concern. Ow, 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 he kept bellowing. No touch, Marissa yelled, pointing to the radioactive fetcher. Doody-doo-doo, no touch, the cavemen chanted. I promise we'll send someone back to clean that up. Marissa ran into the time machine. Inside the machine, Marissa found Tom staring, confused, at a framed Star Trip poster on the floor. What's an original one sheet of the Star Trip 2 Exler's Revenge doing in here? More important question, how does this control panel work? Dr. Vasquez hadn't bothered to make it user-friendly for anyone except herself. Other than the part of the display that read 10,000 BC, nothing else made sense. Except for the green lever that had started all the trouble in the first place. Don't we just pull the lever? Tom asked. Fingers crossed, said Marissa as she pulled the green lever forward. In an instant, the time machine disappeared from the Stone Age. Since they were standing inside of it, so did Tom and Marissa. With the weight suddenly gone from his foot, Doug stopped screaming and began to hop around on one leg, muttering caveman words. Hauga? Asked Doug. In caveman language, that meant, Doug, are you okay? That looks like it really hurt. Also, what just happened? Where did that giant box come from? More importantly, where did it go? And are we ever going to see Tom and Marissa again? And what's that glowing box? And why aren't we supposed to touch it? Doug sat down heavily on the crane platform and began to massage his rapidly swelling foot. The other cavemen watched him nervously, waiting for instructions. Finally, Doug sighed and said, Gurg, which meant, gentlemen, I give up. Let's just get up and walk away, or in my case, hobble away, and pretend none of this ever happened. The other cavemen nodded in agreement. It had been a very long week for all of them.